We have a recording in process, Marcella. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to start. I might be getting a few dings for people with technology concerns, but so everybody, we are really happy that Marcella freed her schedule to join us today. As you know, she is the chairperson of the county board and an award-winning activist. And because we've been seeing a lack of civility, dare I even say threats of political violence that people use verbally, I was hoping that we could address the issue of how do we lead and how do we handle conflict with compassion, with curiosity, and with courage. And Marcella definitely has modeled that in her leadership and with the support she has gained of many people. But that will be one of the questions that we'll be asking you, Marcella. And because I don't know you personally, I was grateful that you responded to Candace Ollie, who is in another meeting. She sends regrets. So, Marcella, are you comfortable telling us who you are and what gives you passion and how you stay strong and care for yourself as well as others?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's Marcelia Nicholson, Chairwoman, Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself, but just in terms of my legislative career, I ran for office in April of 2016. I became chairperson, or I should say vice chairperson in 2018. I became chairwoman in 2020 at the height of the pandemic, and I was unanimously reelected to chair in 2022 with an election right around the corner in April. So I'll just I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself. So I'm a product of Milwaukee. I was born and raised here in the inner city in the 53206 zip code, which is nationally known for one of the poorest, most incarcerated zip codes. It has some of the widest health disparities and other social disparities that lead to all the statistics that we hear about today. And it's unfortunate to share that I actually experienced a lot of those things. I remember as a little girl, learning very early on when I heard gunshots at night to, go and hide under the bed. I saw and heard all types of things that, no child should ever see. But I think my saving grace was that I attended fully funded public schools. And I had, and I had a lot of amazing teachers who just, while my parents were working so much, I spent a lot of time at my grandmother's who was on 23rd and Keith. So I attended Benjamin Franklin Elementary School. And I just had all these amazing teachers who saw potential in me, and they nurtured me, and they pulled me into, all sorts of programs and small group situations where I really developed this deep love for reading. So even when I think about those nights as a little girl, when I would hear those gunshots, I would be under my bed with a flashlight, right, reading my books that I was getting from school. And I remember, spending tons of time in the community that I grew up in and thinking, there really should be a better way, even as a young child. And my parents worked a lot, and they instilled, a work ethic in me that, allowed me to grow up into a high schooler. I started working at 14 years old. McDonald's was actually my first job. And I was contributing to bills and all sorts of things. And it was just normal in my family. My dad's from the South and my mom is Puerto Rican. And it was just normal in my family. And I spent my time in high school really tense with my teachers, combating against my teachers who thought I should be spending more time in school and I should be thinking about college. And me saying, well, no, I got a family to help take care of. Like, we're really struggling. But it was a guidance counselor. She's actually still at Milwaukee Public Schools in administration. Her name was Miss Smith, but she was my guidance counselor in high school. And she said, Marcelia, you're taking the ACTs. I'm going to pay the fee. We're going to, apply you to college. And I actually scored really high on that test that I got a scholarship. And I was able to go to school. So I'm a graduate of UW Milwaukee. I'm the first person in my family to go and finish college and actually earn a degree. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to become, because again, I wasn't thinking I would ever go. When I stepped foot on that campus, I thought back to my years in those schools, and I actually decided to become a teacher. So I started teaching in Milwaukee Public Schools, the place that, nurtured me. And that's where I sort of found my love for politics, because I didn't grow up in a voting family. My dad, the first time I ever heard him voting was for President Obama. Um, by that time I was 18 years old, going on 19. I actually cast my first vote for President Obama as well. But when I got to the classroom, I realized like those kids were dealing with the same, if not worse, than I had when I was a little girl growing up in that zip code. And so I started getting active. I started asking questions. I started going to school board meetings. I started showing up to the state capitol and sharing my perspective as a young teacher of color. I got involved with the National Education Association and organizing with the teachers union. I did all sorts of leadership trainings to, develop my confidence. And it was through my work with, planning rallies and joining other unions when they were striking and so on, that I actually got tapped and encouraged to run for office. It was never my idea. When folks started saying, like, have you ever thought about running for office? My first, instinct was like, are you crazy? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm this poor girl. No one knows who I am. I don't come from this like big political family. But it was really my fellow teachers and my students even who were like, Miss Nicholson, you have to do it. And so they were the ones knocking on doors. My students were on my literature that was mailed out. Their parents were out, supporting, and I won my first race in 2016 with 65% of the vote. And I've been unopposed since. So that brings me here to current. And I would say, just in terms of where I come from and how I was raised, and obviously the support that I was surrounded by, sort of, propels what I work on today. So I'm all about, economic justice. I'm all about, family sustaining wages, family supporting work, education, of course. I'm all about, investing in neighborhoods and communities, safer communities, and health, health and social determinants of health, impacting those at the county have been, great passions of mine, as well as climate justice and other things that, touch us in various ways. So it's been an honor. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me today. And I look forward to the discussion.
If you want to bring me yours.
Wow. Oh, Marcella, you are truly a treasure.
Thank you.
So I will be facilitating this, and anyone who is ready to add your 2 cents, share related issues to this, you could either raise your hand, I can see it on my screen, or you can unmute and I'll be looking for you. So I'm looking first to see if anyone is ready. Carol, would you like to make a comment?
No, but I'm still here.
Okay. So
In
Carol,
fact, I'm trying to hook up another computer to see if its camera works,
sure.
actually.
Okay, we're welcoming everybody. And Liddy has unmuted. Liddy, would you be ready?
Yeah, I have a question though. We've been talking about this 530. And see, I was raised in 53206, another generation when we didn't hear all that, what you're talking about. But we've been talking about this 53206. But what has been done in 53206? Do they have to go to war to get some help in 53206 or what?
No. And I will say a lot of work has been done. I would say there's still a lot of work that has to be done. Communities like 53206, and it's not the only community in Milwaukee that's experienced this. It's not the only community across the nation that has experienced this, but there have been some historical, disinvestment and inequities that have created the communities that we have, such as this. My mom and dad, or my dad, I should say, actually grew up in this community. And he tells me all the time, when I was growing up, we had a thriving Black middle class. But then you, but then you have leadership that comes into power and they disinvest in these areas. They stop investing in business. You had mass incarceration, come into our communities following, drug use and gang and crime related activities. And then you saw those historical disinvestments with those bigger investments in the suburbs and downtown areas. And then you also had, right, like the covenants, the inability for integration. So segregation, we're one of the most segregated communities in the nation. It's because, again, some of those, rules and laws put forth by leadership that, just didn't want to support Black and brown or poor communities. And so while there has been done, I think I would say like over the last decade, there's still so much harm to undo, and so much challenge in these areas when we're dealing with rife poverty, and we're dealing with substance abuse issues and mental health issues and so on. And the fact that Milwaukee County and the city of Milwaukee has been starved by the state legislature of resources. And so I can speak specifically for Milwaukee County. So Milwaukee County, we offer quality of life services, health and human services. So when we're talking about substance abuse or mental health support, or when we're talking about, rent assistance, or even just investing in our parks and other amenities that makes our neighborhood safe. For the last 10 decades, we've received $400 million less from the state legislature than we send up to the state. And so that means $400 million less that we're able to invest in those areas. And unfortunately, when you have leadership of the past who, when they do get those dollars, say, well, we should invest these dollars in neighborhoods where, people can support, or, or can advocate.
Okay, Carol, if you are able to mute yourself, it's beginning to get an echo going here.
Wait a minute. I'm so sorry.
I've never heard that before.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to leave.
Worries.
Here we go. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. And when you have situations where you invest in areas that can maybe raise more resources, or maybe they're able to be more vocal to advocate for those resources because people in poor communities are working themselves, tired, you continue on and perpetuate those inequities. So I am proud to say, I think with this new turn in leadership, myself, the county executive, David Crowley, Mayor Johnson, all being from 53206, all seeing ourselves a member of this community and wanting to build our families and grow with this community. I'm happy to see that there is some movement and some growth. So it won't happen today. It won't happen overnight, but in time and with lots of help, we can certainly get there.
Thank you. Betsy, would you make a comment about how you have been advocating what you do to turn out the vote?
Sure. Thanks, Pat, for asking, and thanks for, yeah, I write postcards all the time. I'm doing them right now.
Beautiful.
This is for voters in Virginia and the important race in of course, in November. Something that is just, I know Pat through Persisters, which is an organization that kind of you might have heard of out of Wauwatosa. It's a group of women, not just in Wauwatosa. I live in Milwaukee, so I'm constituent in the zip code of 53208 is where I am. And then I also know Pat and Nancy and Charlie through the League of Women Voters. And a question that I guess I have for you, it might seem, I'm saying I'm writing postcards because sometimes it just I feel helpless, right? So it's my form of needle pointing, or some people knit and I write postcards. That's what I do, and it helps me just calm. But I'm curious, like, you manage, as Pat has pointed out, trying to, navigate conflict, with courage, compassion, curiosity. I feel like I do pretty well at those, but I get really easily, I'm just pissed off beyond belief. How do you manage that? How do you manage all those feelings? And also just and then a second question, how do you manage it? How do you navigate it? And then a second question what are the most effective ways that we can help you? We can help leaders in Milwaukee, leaders in the state, and leaders at a national level create change.
Wow, those are two very good questions. And in terms of management, first of all, I have to say I'm very grateful that you all see or believe rather that I hold myself with, compassion and grace, because it can get quite frustrating. There are certainly days where I just, like, I just put my head down, I shake my head. Sometimes I'm just, wringing my hands because I can't believe that, we're seeing and experiencing some of the things that we are today. But just in terms of what I've done and sort of what I've learned along the way is one, I'll tell you this. I think teaching fourth graders have it's given me a lot of patience, right? I probably have a lot more patience than most folks have just off the bat, because of working with such a unique, I call them a constituency, right? And they certainly taught me how to be better and how I approach things and how I process things and how I speak about things. I will say that one thing that I am is a student of history. And my dad, he's a Black man from Alabama. He taught me growing up about, all the things that I didn't necessarily learn in school and all the things they're trying to stop us from learning in school, whether it's, slavery, post-Reconstruction, Jim Crow, what happened through the Civil Rights era, and so on. And you learn about these actors, these people who under, insurmountable odds, right, were able to, push through and help eradicate chattel slavery, or push through and help, dismantle segregation in schools and so on. And I think to myself, if like me in 2023, with my cell phone and my technology and my community and my support network, and all the privilege I have as a woman in 2023. Now we don't have, right, we're not equal yet, but compared to, if they could do it, then so can I. And it really is sometimes thinking back about like why I'm here. This worked for me, and I'm a woman of faith. I see it as my purpose, as a calling. And if I'm here, it's here for a reason. And so I try not to let, the chaos and the disrespect sort of bring me down, because there's such a bigger mission at play. And there are so many people who are relying on me to make their lives better. And so for me, it really is a mindset thing. And that's not to say that, sometimes I fail. My mom is one of them where, I'll call her crying, like, Mom, like I had such a hard day. You will not believe, what just happened, or the fight that we lost or whatever. But really, I think going back, being a student of history, relying on my network, and also just tapping into the skills I've learned along the way to just, just keep pushing. We have a lot to overcome, and we just can't give up, right? And so that definitely plays a part. So that's the managing aspect. And then I think the secondary question was, if you could repeat, Betsy.
Was, what are the most effective ways that we can help, both
Yes.
local and a larger level?
Yeah, absolutely. I will say you all certainly have a leg up on that, where you're involved and you're engaged. And I tell people all the time that as elected officials, while it's certainly our job to, bring you in and educate you and make sure your voices are at the table, we have to think of it as a two-way street. If you could be partners in this work, if you could engage yourself enough to know, like maybe what's going on so that we can be a better representative for you. If you could also show us some support. I'll tell you one of the hardest things, and this is for me personally, because again, I didn't come from a political family. I didn't wake up one day, look in the mirror and say, you know what you're going to be, girl? You're going to be, a public official. I certainly came from public service, and I got pushed into elected work. And it sometimes hurt me when I hear all politicians are scum. All they're doing is lying in their pockets. They don't care about people. And while there are certainly a lot of them, right, we hear about them all the time, there are some of us who are committed and love our community and are here not because we're making all this money and we're getting all this power, but really because we want to make our communities better. So in terms of engaging and meeting us halfway, it is researching those elected officials and knowing who those difference makers are, and supporting them, supporting their elections, supporting them throughout the year. And when you're holding them accountable, maybe also, send some words of support.
Mhm. Thank you. Renee, I'm just, oops, okay, she just, okay. Sorry, I'm trying to pick people who I can see. So Charlie, here you go. And you're muted.
Yeah, no, I'm unmuting myself. Wow, you've got a really powerful story. You've really, it was lovely to hear, and so lovely to hear that teachers made a difference.
Oh, yes.
Because in my background, I was an academic physician, and I've
Wow.
had some other wonderful stories where teachers recognized, the potential and really made a difference in people's lives. So, and I'm glad you're giving back to your community. One of the things I was wondering, when you meet people who are across the aisle or sort of different of opinion, what is the strategy you use to find common ground and to hook them, to kind of start reeling them into your position and seeing the importance of, like, the most important resource we have are our young, right? Our
Right.
kids. And that we really need to invest in. I mean, we need to think of
Absolutely.
that as our most important infrastructure, are the humans in our communities, right? So
Absolutely.
how do you help people sort of see that and kind of bring them over to your side?
Absolutely. That's a really great question. And I think one of the examples I'll use is my work with so there's an organization called the Wisconsin Counties Association. It's a statewide membership organization made up of all 72 counties. Sorry, minus one, Dane County did leave the organization. And this will probably sum up why. So when I became chairperson, one of the first things my board wanted to convince me of was to leave this organization of counties, because they did not feel that the leadership or the platform was representative of urban communities. As we know, Wisconsin is largely rural and it is largely white, and it's a swing state, but it can, lean conservatively. And so a lot of the policies that were advocated for worked against communities like Milwaukee and Dane County. I wanted to approach it differently. I wanted to see, well, now that I'm here, maybe we can work together and figure something out. So I went to leadership and I said I wanted to pass this resolution, which, acknowledged racism, and it acknowledged the need for inclusion in our state and the need to support urban communities, eradicate poverty, and so on. It was a pretty heavy item. And just to explain the makeup of the counties association, much like the state, all the chairs, let me say, out of 72 chairs, I'm the only chair of color.
Yeah.
There are about 6 women, and the rest are white men, 1 Native American man, and the average age was like maybe 65, right? So that was largely the makeup. And when I first brought the resolution to our resolutions committee, it was unanimously rejected. They then referred it to the board of directors. It was at a standstill. There are people saying, I can't vote on this, or I don't believe this is a thing, and what is going on here? So I thought of a new strategy. Me and the county executive out of Brown County, his name is Troy Streckenbach, we decided to do a statewide tour and talk about what this means and why we're trying to accomplish it. And so the summer before last, me and Troy, we touched almost every county in the state of Wisconsin. We went as far up as Hayward, to the bottom of the state. And we had these small group meetings, and each meeting ranged between maybe 15 to 20 a board of supervisor members. They had staff, administrators, other partner organizations within counties. And we had, discussions. We laid out the issues that plague Milwaukee, how these policies work against us and prevent us from coming ahead. And really what I grounded folks in was, like, what we want to do is meet you halfway. We don't want to, push you any further than you want to go. This isn't to attack you. We're not calling you racist. What we're saying is these are the unique issues that Milwaukee faces. And because we're also so siloed, we don't realize how much we have in common, that we have not in common. And so I would task them with answering questions like, well, what sort of diversity do you see in your community? And they started to think less about Black and white. And they started to say things like, oh, well, we have a very large, like aging community, and all our young people are leaving to the city. So now we're afraid of, right? Like, who's going to carry on and carry forth and maintain the existence of our community? We heard about language diversity. We heard about counties that have large Native reservations, and they have, they have an umbrella of support under federal government and state laws, but there's also conflict with local and county laws, and they don't always figure out how to, meet each other in the middle. And so they started to think about how, wait, this inclusion thing isn't so bad. Maybe we should be thinking about it a little bit more. And it has just grown into just this past September, I presented a workshop. It was one of the most crowded workshops. It was standing room only. And we also gave, very intentional ways for folks to take DEI back to the communities, whether it was just hosting town hall meetings, whether it was, renaming parks to reflect, more representation, whether it was, creating programs to help, focus on issues that could retain and, maintain their workforce, and the younger folks in their community. And I'll say one line I use that it always, and I think it's because it's Wisconsin, but one line I said, and it's always got such great, overwhelming positive response, was that, diversity is like a potluck, right? Potlucks are better when you have more options to choose from. No one wants to eat the same meal over and over. And that one just gets them every time. And so I think just, being kind, meeting people where they are, and just giving them a new way to think about things has gone a long way. And I think improving that relationship. And I'm happy to say that at the last conference, we had a big Milwaukee contingent, and they were happy to be there. They said, we're glad we stayed with the organization and that they've been willing to meet us halfway. So.
Can I just follow up?
Yes.
Because I think you probably have much more in common with these rural counties because the poverty rate is high.
Yes.
They
Yes.
have their access to healthcare
Yes.
is very difficult.
Exactly.
It stems from the same thing. We've decided not to invest in humans.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Whether it was,
mean,
it's mass transportation, it's broadband access.
Yeah, that you guys could be really powerful to bring the needs and concerns of your counties that are very similar, but just sort of in a different geographic location.
Mhm.
Exactly. Thank you, Charlie. And that was some of the takeaways. There are folks who were like, you know what? Maybe the media is playing a big part in this division, right? Maybe it's the powers that know the more we're, the more divided and segregated we are, the more likely we are to come together and fight against them all.
You know what? You're very generous to say it's the media. I would say there's a group of people who are supporting people to vote against their own self-interest.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, to show the common ground you all have, and if we all work together, we become very powerful. That's really wonderful what you did. I love that, what you
Thank
did.
you.
So I am hoping
Thank you
that
so
Tom
much.
and Katie will unmute, because when we start talking about the media, Tom has been a very experienced journalist with the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and also
Oh, wow.
Tom led the Interfaith Conference of Greater Milwaukee for 10 years and navigated some challenges as well. So you don't have to do your video if you're getting your hair done, but if you would just like to pipe in, that'd be great, Tom.
We've been discussing which of us is ready for prime time, and we haven't reached that agreement here yet, so the video is off. But so I don't, we could talk a long time about the news media and from the county board standpoint and from a larger political standpoint. One, this is not necessarily related to that, and we could go down that rabbit hole, but I'm wondering, in addition to the League of Women Voters, organizations like MICA and Souls to the Polls, efforts to get people to the polls, and Souls to the Polls is touting a new initiative to reach youth and young adults. And yet the fastest growing demographic group in the United States are the nones, the NONES, the people who don't go to any particular faith community, don't want to align themselves, but may say, they're spiritual in other ways. So my question is, how, in that context, how do you reach voting age young adults in the central city and beyond to engage themselves in this? Because I'm a little wary of same old, same old. The pastor, I mean, I have great respect for them, but if the population they're trying to reach isn't there, how do you reach them?
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. That was that great, very great question, Tom. So, I believe everyone should vote, and I say that loud and proudly. So a lot of what I do at the county, and this will be sort of multi-layered. So I'll start with, a lot of the work I do at the county around voting is in coordination with our Milwaukee County Clerk, George Christensen. But I've been able to allocate funds to his department. He runs the election commission. So as a Milwaukee County Supervisor, I've been able to allocate funds for the last 4 years towards voter engagement, voter access, inclusion in language for voters, and so on. So I've been proud to lead on some of that work at the county specifically to help expand accessibility to voting. That includes buying, more machines, paying staff, and then, just using my bully pulpit as a county supervisor. I've been involved with a lot of those organizations you named, So Souls to the Polls, and so on, just all across the state, even with the Democratic Party as well, just, rallying voters, whether it's, calling people up, sending voicemails in my name. They have these things now where you can record something and they can send it all to your voicemails reminding you to vote. I've helped run, voter drives, registration drives. And I think why I also love being a part of this work is because I know I am a young woman of color. I'm from an urban community, and sometimes it takes seeing someone that looks like you, and who also, Tom, I don't know if you were here for the beginning of my story, but I didn't grow up in a voting family. And so what I like to talk a lot about is that, I didn't grow up, understanding politics. I was sort of propelled by like my reason, and everyone has that reason. And, it's really up to us to be involved, because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. And I talk about how I found my power in voting. It's so powerful. It's such a powerful thing. And that really does resonate with people in our youth. I'm a former teacher, and I don't think we should I don't think we should recruit voters. I think we should raise voters. And so a lot of the things that I did as a classroom teacher in 4th grade was we did mock, elections. We did mock debates. I got my 4th grade students involved in learning about voting, learning about civic action, so that one day when they get old enough, they already feel ready to vote. But then also they can go home and remind their mom and dad, their aunts and uncles, their grandparents, like, oh, there's an election coming up. Ms. Nicholson told us about this. And I encourage all classroom teachers to do the same. And I was proud to be part of the teachers union who actually did advocate for a lot of that work. And so, also social media. Oh my gosh, social media is such a great tool to, locate and, encourage our youth to get involved. And then also being involved with like youth organizations like Leaders Igniting Transformation, and then Youth Empowered in the Struggle, whether they're 17 and can't vote yet, or they're 18 and just, getting ready to vote for the first time. Just engaging them and making sure that, elected leaders like myself, I know the exec, the mayor, and there are others I know who are also younger and elected, also trying to grab the youth. But, just letting them know that you're our future, and we want to pass our jobs on to you one day. And we also want to be able to, continue to advocate for the policies that you care about. And we can't do that if we don't vote and elect good people.
Thank you.
You have a
Thank
way
you,
with
Tom.
words,
Great question.
Marcella, as does Tom.
Thank you.
T. Ruth, do you say Ruth Shank?
Yeah, it's Ruth.
Okay, hi, Ruth.
Hi,
Yeah,
Ruth.
the first name was kind of interesting, but I like what I'm hearing from County Supervisor Nicholson. And we've met a few times over the last few years. And I've been trying to get a hold of you, my dear, because a lot of the things you're talking about are working with the youth and sharing information with the youth, especially historical information. I am a state director for the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin. And what I want to do is work with you with as many youth groups that you work with as possible. And I especially am interested in the Milwaukee County Youth Commission.
Yes.
Because those are the students, and I've talked about this a number of times on the Zooms that I've been on, and when I'm out and about in the community, because I'm responsible for the entire state of Wisconsin. And so I've told them, I said, well, it's important for us to take youth organizations like that help to mentor and bolster them and get them into position to take leadership roles as they get older. And then the other thing that I was part of, and I'm so pleased, is the League of Women Voters now, starting with the age of 16. Now, they may not be able to vote, but guess what? We can help them understand the purpose of voting. We can help them understand where they may play a huge role in leadership as they get older. So all of this is going to build them up. So what I would like to do is share, and I guess I can put it in the chat, my contact information so that that's something we can do. I also have a league, I think she's still there, Liddy Collins Secrets.
It is here. Yep.
Yeah, so Liddy and I have talked about things that we would like to see happen throughout Wisconsin. She has come to me and she said it's important, and I said this is so important for me too. We have to meet people where they are and then help them grow, help them move up. Now that's not just the youth, that's everyone. And so that's what I would like to talk to you more about, County Supervisor Nicholson, and see if we can't really flip the script, as it were, on some of the things that are happening throughout our country. Wisconsin, especially for the league, it's been the model. It's been the go-to. And I said, well, I want to see that happen throughout Wisconsin and throughout the county and the city and state, you know, all of that. I want to see that happen. And I want the youth to be able to say, I had a voice and people heard me. And as I got older, it made me want to participate in a political future because I can see where people are coming from. And it's important for us to all come together. Like that you talked about history, I am only one generation away from slavery.
Yeah.
Because my dad had me, my mom and my dad, I was born, and then my younger brother was born. When my
Oh, I think we just lost you, Ruth.
Darn.
Uh-oh. Ruth?
Ruth, if you can hear us, we can no longer hear you. Did you
Oh.
accidentally mute yourself? No. If you could put it in the chat, we could call it out. Darn.
It was getting good.
Just as a hopeful note.
And if you, Ruth, I put my email, but if you want to put your information in the chat as well, I can copy that down and follow up.
Nancy, go ahead. Nancy is the president of our Milwaukee County branch of the League of Women Voters. And we're grateful that she said yes and has taken on the job. So Nancy, you started to speak. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, while we were waiting for Ruth to be able to come back, that, well, first of all, Marcelia, where did you go to high school?
I graduated from Milwaukee School of Languages.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
My 8th grade grandson is looking at high schools at this point and has chosen, this is kind of off the off the track of where we were, but it's a hopeful note. He's looking at high schools and has decided that he'd like to go to King. And his mom said, my daughter, give me your top 3 reasons for wanting to go to King. And he
He's my
said,
alumni, that's why.
he said, number 1 was academics.
Yep.
And number 2 was proximity. And Christy said, don't worry about that. That's your dad's and my problem, not yours.
Yep.
And number 3 was diversity. And I
Yeah.
was just thrilled to hear that he said that. It's very hopeful. I believe that Whitney Houston song comes to mind. The children
Yeah.
are our future. And I am very, very excited for that.
That congratulations, first of all. That is so awesome. And I say it all the time, especially this new, like these new Gen Zers. I mean, they're just fantastic. You know,
Yeah.
they have so much emotional intelligence. I think their access to information means they've learned so much more about the world than we did at that age. You know, and it also gives me hope. It gives me so much hope. And that's fantastic. I'm really happy to hear that. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Well, like I said, it was off track a little bit, but I just thought I just heard that this morning, and I've just been kind of so happy for our future with these kids.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's a testament to you, and you know, obviously the foundation you've laid. So that's
Maybe.
awesome.
Maybe.
Who would like to go next?
Hey, Ruth.
Hello.
Renee, go.
I don't have a question. I just want to say hi. I met this young lady. Oh my gosh. Last month, I visited the Milwaukee County Board meeting. As she shared, we were so impressed. I was part of a senior leadership program for 3 days. I got to learn all about all the programs available to Milwaukee County residents. And she has met my daughter, Rachel Bush. And so I wasn't sure if you recognized me.
I do. And I saw your daughter again. I saw your daughter at it was a African American Chambers of Milwaukee event, and I met her and took a picture with her. Yeah.
So yes, I've seen her in action. Again, it was my first Milwaukee County Board meeting, and during that meeting, there was a sudden outburst of a person who was upset with whatever they were discussing at the time, and our chairwoman handled it very well. So I'm so impressed with you. Can't wait to continue to see your growth here in the county. So, okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Renee.
you so much.
And in the
Thank you.
chat, Marcella, Ruth has given you her phone number, and I think it's okay for me to say it if you wanted to write it down. So
I have it here actually.
perfect. Okay, well done. Well done. Carol Montgomery, would you like to add a comment, a question? She's passing. Okay. Liddy, are you wanting to unmute? Liddy is a free spirit, I'll say that.
I love are you retwisting your locks? Is that what's happening there?
Yep.
Beautiful. I love that blonde.
So Liddy,
I have eczema, and if I have eczema, so when you scaling, if I have blonde, you can't see it. That's why.
Oh, that's smart.
There's a secret to this.
That is right, because I get that too here, right here. I get like flakes here. Wow.
He said you got to come see him.
Oh yes, right.
I think he's your.
Drop
I think
your
you're his
contact, too.
supervisor though. He's on 39th and 39th and
Yeah, you are.
See, that's your
Yes, you are.
Good, very good.
Yep. Hi.
well, that's one of our more unique lunch and learn observations.
Yes.
That's right.
I definitely have to come see you now. You have to put your contact in the chat next.
Most definitely.
Nice to meet you. Wow.
And he a county bus driver too.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Yes.
I love our bus
He's a county
drivers.
bus
You all
driver.
do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thankless work. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Well, it looks like
I-
we may be,
I do
Oh,
have
go
a
ahead.
media related question if you want to go there, but
Yeah,
I'm
go ahead, Tom.
wondering, you know, your tour of the other counties and finding common ground sounded really compelling. And so I'm wondering, in those counties, or in the larger media, which is greatly fractured, obviously, these days, what kind of coverage did you get so that more than the people who were at those meetings knew what you were talking about there?
Yeah, unfortunately, not a lot. I got invited to talk about it on Upfront with Channel 12, and then they pivoted the conversation to the RNC very shortly after. And then we tried pitching it to some local media sources, but unfortunately, sometimes they prefer more of the more sensational, I think, stories. So I wish it had been covered a bit more, but I just try to talk about it whenever I can and raise it on, social media and so on. But yeah, unfortunately, aside from Upfront, we just didn't get a lot of traction in terms of just talking about that experience and how, how beneficial it was.
So one related question, how influential is news coverage? And obviously there's television, there's the Journal Sentinel, there's community papers and others, and then you get the people with the podcasts and others. But when, certainly the news media unearthed quite a number of scandals or questionable actions on the part of some public officials, and yet does it really have an impact? Do you see the news coverage having an impact? And this is kind of like, tell us about the meaning of life in 30 seconds also, but
I know, because that's hard. Because I think it does and it doesn't, and I think it just depends, right? I think times like, I'll say like COVID. I think COVID was a very impactful time for media because folks were just sort of like stuck inside, and we weren't really interacting with people, and I think it was easier to sort of get immersed in what was going on in the world, and certainly maybe have more. More of an, I don't want to use the word onslaught because I actually love, or I think media has a purpose, but right, like there's an onslaught of media that I think folks are receiving throughout the pandemic. But then in other times, what I found is sometimes, and especially in communities like Milwaukee, which is a little smaller, I think sometimes relationships matter. And I'll just say this because I'll use myself as an example. The media has attempted to maybe, underwrite me in certain ways related to certain, whether it's votes or policy decisions or whatever it is that have you. But because I'm so, involved in the community and because I have so many relationships, most folks, like, they'll call me up, they'll say, oh, we saw this, but we don't believe it. Like, that's a crocker, And so I think sometimes it depends. If smaller communities, relationships can sometimes combat negative media, but then I certainly think like it definitely has a role and a place in terms of breaking stories and sharing scandals. And then it depends on the publication, and I think it depends on the author. And I'll use like the Journal Sentinel, for example, I think is a very trusted media source. I will say that some writers are maybe seen as more like, oh, he's just gossiping, whereas others are seen as like very serious and unbiased and someone that we can trust. So I think it just depends. And I will say what I found unfortunate about like where media is going. One, I think social media and misinformation has played a large role. I think that coupled with disinvestment from education means a perfect storm for people who are maybe not always able to, decipher what's right versus what is just, inflammatory or biased, versus what is like what they can take from and really use and tuck away. But I think our smaller local medias, our talk radio, our local papers are so important because it does give that information that people need that wouldn't ordinarily be made public. So I don't know, media is so interesting in this line of work, Tom. I would love to like
well, we should talk sometime.
I would,
I
would
could
love
see a
that.
lunch date being set up on that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Because
that's
there's
great.
so
You know,
much. I mean, I could just, it's a rabbit hole, right?
well, I had 2 years as the reader contact editor handling all the complaints for the Milwaukee Journal in the days when we had 500,000 circulation on Sundays, and they ran a coupon in the paper with my picture saying, how are we doing? Let Tom know. They didn't put a
Oh.
bullseye on me, but they didn't need to. So I'm quite familiar with that. By the way, Greg Borowski, the executive editor, the editor-in-chief of the Journal Sentinel, is speaking tomorrow at the Newsroom Pub across from the Pabst Theater.
Sure is. Yeah,
It's
he
a
sure is.
public event, but you'd need to register and it does cost. And it's a real small
Okay.
venue. So if anyone's planning on being there, I would say, get there early before 11. No place to-
And if you're so interested, your first source should be down in Milwaukee Milwaukee PBS. Black Nouveau been around 28 years. We've been
Yes.
covering, and Everett Marshburn. Yeah, starred you on the rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Liddy. Maybe you could put that in the chat, Tom. Charlie has her hand up. Charlie.
Yeah, Marcella, I didn't know if you were aware of Civic Media. It's a progressive
Yes.
talk radio, and they actually have like Wisconsin Rapids, Wausau. Did you know
Yeah.
that? So did you try
Yeah,
to
I've
contact them
actually,
and-
yeah, I've been on the platform a few times. That's the one. It's like Devil's Advocate Radio too, out of Brady, off of Brady Street. Actually, I covered Jocasta Zamaripa, who's a former state representative now, in the city council. She had a radio show. I actually covered for her one day. That was actually really fun. But I love that. I love that platform, and I usually interact with the I guess the founders or co-owners, however you want to call them. They're at like the events that people should be at.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I really
Yeah, I became aware of them because I'm involved in what's called the Brookfield Action Team. It's a group of
Yeah.
Dems. And when I was marching in the 4th of July parade, someone made me aware. And one of the persisters, Luann Bird, has is it an hour or a half hour? Pat, do you know?
I'm
I
not
think
sure.
it's
Beth,
I
do you
think
know?
it's an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Peggy,
And I just didn't know because they're scattered all throughout rural
Right.
Wisconsin, that could maybe help promote what you're doing up there. So
yeah,
it sounds
yeah.
like I'm glad you know about it.
Yeah, it's yeah. I try to know about the like the smaller, the local, or the more progressive news sources, because that's it's one thing we got to do better at is owning the media and framing and being able to frame the narrative that they've been able to do statewide for so long.
Peggy did an hour.
Yes,
Peggy Creer did
with them.
an interview.
Yeah, and Tom just put a note in the chat too.
Nice.
Greg Borowski,
Greg.
Sentinel, tomorrow interviewed by media panel at the public event in Newsroom Pub. Google Milwaukee Press Club, click on events, advanced registration with a lunch event. So we are coming to the gratitude time in our meeting. And I will start with telling you, this gives me such a lift. All the organizations that I love working with, you are very deeply respected by and connecting to. And one of the things, if people haven't ever worked with Souls to the Polls, if you are there on early voting and a person comes out and you are standing in the cold and say, hey friend, how did your voting go? And they say, oh yeah, I'm really glad I got to vote. And then we say, do you want to triple your impact by right now texting 3 more people and encouraging them to come and vote? Give them details of where we have early voting. That was one of the happiest work that I have done. And I started in 7th grade, also with a mentor who encouraged me to be working for justice all my days. So another comment that you said that I appreciated was working with children helped you work with adults who act like children, haven't quite developed their social emotional intelligence, or it took a leave. But that was Karen Ordnance, who she and I organized the first union of childcare workers in Wisconsin. We never got a contract, But then she went on with AFSCME to organize future people, future unions in the city of Chicago. And I'd say, Karen, how's it going? She says, hey, I know how to work with toddlers. I got this. You know,
That's right.
so, yeah, all of these experiences that we bring to bear. So that's my gratitude. Thank you very much. And anyone else who wants to unmute and just give our appreciation and our support to Marcella and her work.
Well, I'm just glad that I had the few minutes free to be able to join you today. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy.
That I am just so grateful for you. Are so brilliant. Your energy is contagious, and I just thank you for all your efforts, and we'll do our best to try to keep up and show that, give you the support that you deserve in all your efforts. So thank you very much.
Ruth, are you able to jump in?
Yeah, I
There
just
she
wanted
is.
to say that I appreciate Marcia and her work, and I look forward to working with you to help mentor and raise up these young people so that they have an opportunity to move forward and develop a wonderful world for themselves. And
Absolutely.
through the league, we have so many different committees that it's not likely that they can't find something that is close, near, and dear to their heart to jump into and be mentored in and move forward and grow our world, because this is not just one little place. The county is, I always tell people, I said, local is the starting place. I said, you can
Yes.
go so many places from there. And so I really understand. Peter said, Ruth, you and Marcia need to get together, and there's a couple other county supervisors, and you guys go and do your thing, So
I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, I appreciate the work that you're doing. And I think what you're doing is you're out there being a role model for young people. And, I think that will help me be able to help them with your experience. Say, you know what? You ran for office once before. They may not have gotten you, but let's work on what you need to do to accomplish your goal. And
Yes.
I'm building relationships, and some I've already built throughout the state that can help these young people do just that. Don't give up just because you didn't win the first time, just get some
Exactly.
mentoring and get some relationships built and let people know who you are and what your generation needs. Gen Z,
Absolutely.
they're on their way. They're on their way
That's
now.
right. Thank
Yep.
you so much, Ruth.
I'm just saying thank you for stepping up to the plate, because as a senior boomer, just to hand it off to you guys. And I want you to bring your folks with you. It's the future's in you guys' hands. And thank you.
Thank you, Liddy.
I'd also like to thank you. You know what? You just glow with hope. And in a world where hope, it sometimes seems hopeless, your hope is contagious. So really continue the work you're doing. And like Liddy just said, as a boomer, I am happy to hand it off to you because you're doing a great job. Thanks.
Thank you, Charlie. Oh, wow.
Oh, and one more thing, Kenny Dyson's information is in the chat.
I got it down. Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Kenny.
Well, thank you. Stay strong. And one of the expressions I like is take good care of yourself, and when possible, take care of others. So that's a wish for all of us as we express this gratitude and we move forward with hope. Thanks so much, Marcella. Stay strong.
Thank you so much, everyone. This was an honor and a pleasure.
And we take our recording, we put it onto a YouTube, so the people who wanted to come, who couldn't come today, they get to see it. And it's
fantastic.
on our league YouTube for quite a while. Okay, my friends.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Take care.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.
You too, Ruth. Thanks for coming, Carol.